Well, did Disney Big Cheese Bob Iger hint at some major changes coming to the MCU? Well, recently, he talked a little bit about going back to the well, some changes coming to Marvel, and why this could be pretty important to the franchises moving forward. So let's dive into what the Disney CEO had to say. Well, as many of you know, there have been a ton of recent reports that indicate that Disney is scaling back a little bit on Marvel Studios' Disney Plus content. And honestly, it sounds like some of those plans might be in place for some of the big screen too. Now, if you've been paying attention, you know CEO Bob Iger recently took over from Bob Chapek and is trying to realign everything at Disney, and Marvel is one of those things he's working on. Now, recently he was speaking to Morgan Stanley, and this was reported via The Hollywood Reporter. And what Iger had to say was pretty interesting because he said the company will be taking a much closer look at how much it's spending on content and how many projects it produces over the next couple of years. This really begs the question of what this means for the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how it could impact some of the projects moving forward. What Iger had to say was pretty interesting, but honestly makes a lot of sense. During that article, he actually said, "What we have to look at Marvel is not necessarily the volume of Marvel storytelling, but how many times we go back to the well on certain characters. Sequels typically work well for us, but do you need a third or fourth, for instance? Or is it time to turn to other characters? There is nothing in any way inherently off in terms of Marvel brand. I think we just have to look at what characters and what stories we are mining. And if you look at the trajectory of Marvel over the next 5 years, you'll see a lot of newness. Now we're going to turn back to the Avengers franchise, but with a whole new set of different Avengers as an example." Now, I did notice Bob Iger didn't mention anything specific, like the recent underperformance of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. But overall, I don't really totally disagree with him. Marvel has had some great threequels, to be fair. Captain America: Civil War, Iron Man 3, and Thor: Ragnarok were all absolutely great and did really well as far as returns and box office go. And sometimes new projects don't work out so well, like 2021's Eternals. Now, if you looked at that leaked Marvel slate that came out a couple of days ago, it does seem to support what Iger is saying. You're seeing a lot of Season 2 for various characters and sequels for various characters, but the vast majority of that schedule really focused on new characters and expanding other areas of the Marvel Universe. I don't necessarily have any problems with what Iger's talking about here, and I tend to agree for the most part. Sometimes when you go back to the same character too often, it starts to get dull, and this drives fans out of the theaters. I think the downturn in some of Marvel's box office, even if it's based on quality, is probably pretty alarming for those at the top of Disney, and they want to steer this in the right direction to ensure the franchise and the studio has a long-term viability that keeps the content coming for years and doesn't break the Marvel Universe in the process. Quite honestly, under Bob Chapek, we were drinking from a fire hose, and the Marvel content was literally releasing, we'd have a 2-week wait, and then we'd get a whole nother show, never giving fans really enough time to digest or enjoy, just feeding them meal after meal after meal till fans start to get too full consuming the content. Now, whether this works out or not, we're going to have to wait and see. Iger was one heck of a leader for Disney over the years that he ran the company before Chapek kind of steered it off the road, and I think this is likely going to be a good plan. I felt pretty confident that he said the volume of Marvel material is not going to change, just the characters we're going to see. So I don't think we're going to actually see fewer Marvel projects on the big screen, just way more different characters, which should make a lot of fans happy. But we're going to have to wait and see.